All right, what's up, guys? TheAireaidLord is here for Season 9, Episode 14 of The Walking Dead, entitled Scars. You can tell in my voice that I got some mental scars from watching this episode. Man, I'm doing this a few minutes after I ended my reaction video, and this was one of the heaviest, I'm thinking back to The Grove with the whole Carol, Lizzie, Mika thing, man. This was just a depressing, raw episode, and I'm surprised they got away with some of the things they did in this episode. I mean, a little bizarre. I don't even know where to start. I mean, I guess we can start with so Daryl, Connie, Lydia, and Henry do make it to Alexandria. Henry gets his leg stitched up. They actually reenacted that scene from the comics where Lydia licks Carl's eye socket, and they did that where she said she thought his scar was attractive because it was like a battle scar that he got fighting for her, which, you know, I like. It's more of the romance between them, which is cool, and they were able to add that in an otherwise completely depressing freaking episode. And then Michonne has, a bizarre conversation with Lydia where she says, if the only life she had to look after was her own. And originally, I thought that she was kind of trying to convince Lydia to leave on her own and go back to the Whisperers to take the risk and to take all of that away from their community. Because obviously, the longer she's with them, the longer they're a threat. Like, the Whisperers are going to constantly be hunting them. And so there's always going to be a threat kind of looming out there because of that. But it was actually more of what Michonne was battling. And we see, so the episode had a lot of flashbacks, and they used this kind of grainy, saturated tone. And they've done this before in episodes where you have the black and white versus, if you guys remember the season 6 premiere where the present was in color and black and white was in the past. They did a similar kind of thing here, and basically, and it was a little hard to follow at first, but basically, and I thought this woman was like Michonne's sister or something, because she's another, African-American woman who honestly could have passed off as Michonne as a blood relative. But this is a high school friend that Michonne knew 15 years ago, back when the world was, before the apocalypse, and Sadiq and some others just found this girl. The thing is, the events in the first half happened so fast. And I guess that's maybe a little criticism I have, because, I'm trying to follow, because I know, my mind is set up for something that maybe involves the other communities or something. And I'm looking for it, and it's everything happens so quickly. We're introduced to this woman, suddenly she's having kumbaya fires at Alexandria. The next minute, she stole Judith and ran away, and now Michonne is hunting her. It was just really fast paced, and also the commercial, the breaks between these segments were just very big. So watching it live, I'm sitting there, muting commercials, just waiting there. And it's just I'm going fast-paced, wait a long time, fast-paced, wait a long time. The pace was just aggravating. It was aggravating because things were happening so quickly. So I was doubting myself. Am I missing something? Okay, this is a woman, and she didn't even reveal her identity up front. Michonne was just, you saw in her face, she's like, oh my gosh, I recognize this person. It's well, we don't. Who is this person? And then they have that conversation in the kitchen, and you're piecing things together. Okay, they knew each other from somewhere. But what are the chances? Because Michonne's from Georgia, right? So this is another Morales thing where somebody from that Georgia area where we started somehow made their way all the way up north to Virginia. And we just don't know how. I mean, granted, maybe it's not, if there's nothing left in Georgia that's just scavenged and picked apart, maybe people collectively tried to go towards D.C. as some sort of safe area. I don't know. That's a discussion for another day. But it just, it's kind of what are the chances that, Sadiq and this group, found someone that Michonne knew? It was very, like the odds of it, like as opposed to a story where it was an internal conflict, because I was fully expecting this episode to be some sort of internal conflict, and that was my prediction. My prediction was that something like Maggie wanting to go kill Negan ultimately decided Rick Grimes' fate, because he tried chasing after her, Daryl intervened, then Rick got on the horse, got the rebar, and then blew up the bridge, and then he was missing. So I thought Michonne and maybe Daryl would have blamed Maggie, or there'd be some sort of internal fight between them, but we didn't even see those characters in this episode. It was Daryl and Michonne, because he was out looking for Rick, and so he came out, and then when Judith went missing, he was looking for her when she got captured by those crazy cultists. But I guess this subverted my expectations, because I didn't expect it to be like this new group that was just... like, the introduction of it was just weird, because, like, think about comparing it last week to the Highwaymen, where the Highwaymen, they had been teased in a prior episode with that symbol, and then we go to the next episode, and we have, they have that outpost, and then we go in, and we see they're all in, like, goofy attire, and then they're just raiders and bandits. Like, it's, like, the presentation of how they were introduced in one episode, I liked it. Like, it didn't feel like it was jumbled, drawn out. You had a little humor with the movie thing that won them over to defend the routes. This just felt weird, because it's like, oh, here's this person that Michonne knew 15 years ago that we just so happened to rescue, and then they're suddenly having campfires, and then they're they're getting along, and but then Judith gets taken, and I feel like this episode could have been longer. I feel like we could have had like a longer 90-minute episode that could have gone, because like there was a guy that was older, like a teenager, who was probably indoctrinated in this system for a much longer period of time. If I forget I don't even think they gave him a name. He was just like the older guy that was with the woman that Michonne knew, Jocelyn. So it was Jocelyn and the other guy, and like, I feel like there should have been some conversation with him. Like, I just feel like there should have been more conversations. Like, everything just happened in this episode so quickly, and I was able to follow it. And the scene that obviously I liked that they did spend more time with was obviously the tragedy, because Michonne's trying not to kill these kids. She's like, hey, I can take them in, blah blah blah, and they're just not backing down. They're completely for Jocelyn, and they're not backing down, and so Michonne is forced to kill them. That's the shot where she's swinging her katana, and she's like kind of screaming as she's doing it. The parts that, like, it was done well. I liked the one sequence I really liked was where Michonne is chopping up those zombies, and it's matching up, like it's paralleling to the present. It's like flashing between the past and the present, where she's chopping the kids up, but then it's also she's chopping the zombies up. Like, that was a really good shot. Like, I will praise that. And then the Negan-Michonne conversation, like, I've been really liking their interaction. So that was another home run conversation. And Michonne is maybe kind of being swung over to Judith's side about trusting him. He's like, what did you talk about in here? Are you telling the truth? And because Michonne is just so angry, and so she sees Negan as kind of almost like that Jocelyn outsider thing, like just this poison that's going to poison Judith. She's so protective of Judith, and I think that makes sense. Like, the reason, obviously, other than the things Negan's done in the past to them, but she just is so protective of Judith because of what happened with that psychotic woman, her cult of kids, which makes sense. And Judith, obviously, she's missing at one point in the episode. She's missing in two time periods. She's missing in the past when she gets taken by the cultist, and she's missing in the present when she goes to run after Daryl's group who left, because she hates that Michonne's not helping them. And so she tried to go help them. She gets attacked by some walkers. Michonne meets up with her. And it's actually interesting that Judith remembers some of those things, even as a little kid. Like, we get that old actress, the younger kid, the baby who plays younger Judith, and we had her, I think, for probably her last appearance, who recalls these events, and it's like, that kind of surprised me, where the older Judith, the Kaylee Fleming Judith, was like, yeah, I recall some of the stuff that happened. They were nice to us, but obviously I knew that Jocelyn was a bad person. And so, I don't want to sound like I'm being negative in this review. I do want to praise, before I forget, the girl who plays Judith, the Kaylee Fleming. She is better than some actresses that are like 40, 50 years old. Like, she's like, what, like 9, 10 years old? Like, so many of her facial expressions, like when she was crying over Carl's grave, when Michonne, like that conversation that Michonne and Judith had when they were on top of the rocks, like, that was deep shit. Like, I was just, like, you'll see in my reaction, I was just sitting there. I was just soaking it up. I was like, this is like A+ acting right here. Like, they're both phenomenal. And I was like, I don't think I could have acted even like a minuscule of the level that this girl was when I was 9, 10 years old. Like, I don't even think my cursive handwriting was on point back then, you know? I have to applaud it, and I didn't want to end this review without saying that. Like, just every moment she's on screen, she's just an incredible act. Incredible. I hope nothing happens to her character. I do kind of see her as like the new Carl. I mean, she's like the Grimes. She is the Grimes now that she's kind of taking over, and I really think that if she's going to grow up and the seasons are going to go on with her kind of at the helm, depending what happens to Michonne, like, dude, I am all for that. Especially if, like, her and Negan, that would be cool, man. Like, because she's just phenomenal. I just think the actress really made me like the character a lot. And so I think, I can't say enough nice things about her, you know? But yeah, I'm very torn on this episode because there were depressing, raw, gritty natures of this episode that we haven't seen done in this show. It felt like a departure from what The Walking Dead was. And the Whisperers weren't even a part of this episode. Like, they put that whole plot on pause to deal with this. And it was this big lingering thing with the exes, like... But, like, that's another thing. What even were the X's for? Because Daryl and Michonne get captured, and then they get tied up, and then, like, that was another thing. Like, Daryl was able to, like, undo his restraints, and then he only escaped after all of the people left, but they got branded first. Like, what was the branding for? Like, were they a group? Like, I didn't quite understand what they were. Like, what the cultists were, what they were. They just seemed like Jocelyn explained, she was just trying to indoctrinate these kids to be killers, scavengers, savages, like, at a young age. Like, she was just like this child abductor who turned them into psychopaths. Like, I don't know anything beyond of her philosophy beyond that. And like, the episode didn't, I feel like, get to that point enough, you know? It just left me confused because I was looking for that, and I got it all at the end. That's the thing. Like, they kept bottling this up, and then at the very end, there was this explosion of emotion from what Michonne had to do in killing the kids and everything else that happened. And I just, it was just suppressing it for so much of this episode. And maybe that was the point because Michonne had been suppressing this for years. And for me, it was just kind of like, it made sense towards the end. And I guess I was stunned a little bit, like, wow, okay, so the decision to, like, the reason Tara left, like, the reason Tara got fed up with Michonne was because Alexandria had isolated itself from the world and from all the other communities, and they just weren't doing anything. And when Jesus said Maggie's not the biggest fan of Michonne, I think it's because Michonne was like, we don't want anything to do with any of the communities, and Maggie's like, what are you talking about? Like, Rick, Carl, like they had this vision, like, we all united to take down the saviors, like, what's your problem, kind of thing. It was kind of like that. Like, all the community said to Michonne, what's your problem, woman? She said, you wouldn't understand, some bad shit happened. They said, fine, be isolationist, we don't give a shit. And that was really it. That's what split them apart. Michonne really made the decision. But that's the thing, though. And suddenly the quotes from the earlier episodes make sense, where Father Gabriel's like, you made this decision for us. Like, why even is there a council if you can just veto everything? And this makes sense because Michonne made that decision. She said, like, this is our group and we're not going to stray outside of it. Like, let's do a head count of everyone who's inside Alexandria, And if you're not part of that, then we're just not interacting with you. So, and really, this whole the whole Whisperer thing is really the only thing that kind of united them a little bit more. And the fact that Yumiko, Magna, Connie's group kind of came into the mix. And then also Judith. She's the one pioneering this because she, I guess, wasn't traumatized as much by these events. So she's pioneering, look, we have friends in other communities. Why are we abandoning them? And then her point comes to a head in this episode where she says, look, they're in danger and they need our help. It was funny. I was worried. I was, confused. I was like, why is Daryl, Henry, Lydia, and Connie going out in the middle of the night? They ended up being fine towards the end. I think that was the funny part, how the episode ended, where the horses were pulling, they cut a car in half, and they were sitting in the car, and the car was being towed by these horses. It was just a weird crossover, because people who use horse-drawn wagons used them before cars were invented, but because of the apocalypse, cars can't be used anymore, no fuel, so it was kind of funny. I mean, it was a nice, funny way to end. I mean, I guess technically the real end of the episode is when the Whisperers locate the kingdom. Now, I did think to myself, doesn't that seem too convenient that the Whisperers just magically saw the kingdom? But they followed the convoy, because you see when they're looking at the kingdom, that horse buggy with all of them in it, they go inside, and then those Whisperers say, oh, we have to tell Alpha. So most likely they were tracking them and followed them to the kingdom. So yeah, that convoy kind of screwed them. But you know what? The Highwaymen didn't do their job. I'm going to blame this. If a whole bunch of people die next episode, which it looks like they probably will, it's probably the Highwaymen's fault, because they were paid to do their job. And you know what? They're not getting to watch Jurassic Park if they don't do their job. I'm just going to say that right now, guys. All right? So let me know what you thought of this episode. I really want you guys, do you agree with me, on the pacing, the explanation of Jocelyn and her group? What do you think? Because this feels like another group that was introduced to us and then killed off in the same episode, which I don't think's ever happened, but because it was a flashback and it had already happened, they needed to do that. But I felt like extra airtime would have definitely been helpful. This was like a 90-minute episode. I feel like you could have explored, maybe Michonne finds Jocelyn. Why did Jocelyn, Sadiq's hey, I just found this woman out there. It's well, couldn't Michonne, that would have been cool. What if Michonne in that opening sequence is looking for Rick, can't find him, but she does find Jocelyn. She's searching the near the bridge where Rick blew it up, and then she bumps into Jocelyn. She's like, "Oh my gosh, I haven't seen you in years. What are you doing?" She stumbles across her, and that would have made more sense, and it would have also tied that opening scene with what the rest of the episode was going to be. And I don't know why it was completely separate. It's almost like that whole bit was completely separate, because it was the finding Rick Grimes bit was separate from Judith being captured by this psycho and her group of cultists, because you had those different plot lines. You had the present with Henry, Lydia, and Daryl. You had Rick, or Michonne looking for Rick, and then you had Michonne going up against her old friend and the brainwashing she was doing with these kids. It was just, I feel like they could have jumbled it all together better, and it bothered me a little bit. I still got the emotional payoff that they were promising, but I just feel like it could have been introduced better. That's kind of what I'm sticking to with this, all right? So let me know what you guys think. I'm going to give this one, this is going to be such a tough rating. I'm going to go 8.5, because I wish there were more cohesive, the storytelling just was weird, how they did it. It was just very weird. And it was a good episode, though. I don't want to knock it down to a 7 or something. It was good because the actors did such a good job, and it did get the point across and why she was isolating them. And I just, there's some things that irk me, and I just had to do this vlog now to tell you guys. So that's my review. And tomorrow will be Tuesday. Tomorrow will be episode 15's predictions, and holy shit, that's going to be a big one. You guys are not going to want to miss that one. So let's Let's get into it. 2 more episodes left. Holy shit. Let's cross our hearts and let's just hope for the best, man. Hopefully our favorite characters don't die. So that's the hope. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you later. Peace out.